The New York Jets have a new defensive coordinator, and his name is Brian Duker. Did Aaron Glenn miss the mark with this hire, or did he find something in an under the radar name who interviewed for the job less than 24 hours after his reported hiring? We'll talk about that and much more, all coming up here on a Wednesday edition of NY Flight Jets Talk. Let's go.
This is NY Flight Jets Talk with Connor Long. NY Flight Jets Talk. We're talking Jets, 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 Jets. NY Flight Jets Talk with special guests. NY Flight Jets Talk. Here's your host, Connor Long. Jets, 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 Jets.
What is going on, New York Jet fans? Hello, everyone. Welcome back here into another edition of NY Flight Jets Talk. As always, I'm your host, Connor Long, as we come to you guys live right here on this Wednesday evening, January 28th, 2026. Thank you all for joining us and continue to support the show. Be sure to drop down below, smash that like button, hit subscribe, because that is the free way to support us and help the show grow. Covering the team all year long, bringing you guys daily news, daily insights, interviews, etc. So stay tuned. Read my work over at jetsxfactor.com as well. Putting a few articles up over there each and every single day. And then, of course, follow me on Twitter at Connor_Long15 over in the X Sphere. Again, thank you all for joining us right here on this Wednesday evening. The Jets have their new defensive coordinator. His name is Brian Duker, and joining me today right here on the show to talk all things New York Jets and their latest hire, of course, coming at the defensive coordinator job. It is Matt O'Leary, friend of the show. You all know him from his own Jets podcast, Talking Jets, Just Jets. Matt, it is great to be with you, my friend. And look, it may be January, but these past 2 days, the Jets are giving us something to talk about. You know, the negative news, I think we could both agree on, moving off of Tanner Engstrand after one season, and an intriguing hire in Brian Duker that I really am excited to dive in with you today, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. Never a dull day in Jets land, right? It feels like there's always something going on, and a perfect example over what really going back to the end of last week and carrying over into the beginning of this week with the Wink Martindale coming in, and then the Jets back to the drawing board at defensive coordinator. But yeah, excited to break it all down.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll start with Duker. And guys, we want to engage with you as always to throw your questions, your comments, your thoughts in the chat. We're going to get to those. I already see Nate dropping a 5-pack of gifted membership. So shout out to you, Nate. Thank you so much for supporting the show as always, man. Really means a lot. Gifted memberships go a long way to help us support the show. Also, super chats, those will get your question read immediately if you submit a super chat. So shout out to everyone watching. And then Rick Kent follows that up with another 5-pack of gifted membership. So shout out to you, Rick. Thank you so much. Shout out to Nate and Rick. Give them some hype in the chat for going ahead and dropping some memberships to get us started right here on this Wednesday evening. Now, Matt, I put out an article yesterday over at jetsxfactor.com that kind of spoke about how the Jets defensive coordinator search shouldn't be about landing the big name. I didn't think it should have been about landing the big fish. Wink Martindale was one of the bigger names this search, and someone who wasn't appealing to either one of us. I had him in the D tier of my rankings among the 9 candidates that the Jets interviewed for the role. So the approach that I took with that thought process is, look, the Jets defensive coordinator job is not the most appealing in the league. There's no way around it. There's a reason the Dallas Cowboys landed Christian Parker. There's a reason the Green Bay Packers landed Jonathan Gannon. There's a reason that an old friend in Jim Leonard is most likely headed to Buffalo to serve as their next DC. So the Jets were never attracting those top options. They weren't getting a big fish. But I also thought that didn't rule out the possibility of the Jets bringing in someone who may be a lesser known name, but is an up-and-coming guy, someone who has progressed throughout the NFL coaching space over these past few years and aligns where the NFL is going in terms of structuring and building a modern-day defense. Wink Martindale, Matt, is a really, really good football coach. There's no way around that. He was really good for a long time in the NFL. But the NFL is shifting away from the Wink Martindale, shifting away from the Rex Ryans of the brash personalities and blitzing 40, 45% of the time. The NFL is going away from that and going to these younger, more modern, innovative guys. Someone I mentioned in the article was Ephraim Banda, the Browns safety coach. The Jets end up landing someone similar to Banda in a way, and Brian Duker. Kind of sound off your thoughts on this hiring, then I'll share mine.
Yeah, once we found out the news that Wink Martindale, like it fell through and that it was rumored Aaron Glenn wanted to call plays, I figured it would be someone along these lines, a name that we haven't really heard all that much about, and someone who wouldn't necessarily be a threat to Aaron Glenn, and someone who'd be willing to, take the job and let Aaron Glenn call plays. This is someone that Glenn has worked with in Detroit. I think it makes sense from that perspective when you look at it. Like, I don't think anyone should be surprised that this was the hire. It is to me strange the timing of how they did it. They had the initial 8 people that they interviewed. Then they bring in Wink for the second, and then they go back to the drawing board, have the first interview yesterday, and then he's hired pretty much 24 hours later. So a little bit bizarre the process, but with Glenn calling plays, again, not really all that surprised that this is how the end result played out.
I'm going to be honest, man. I really, really like this hire. And this was kind of a last minute thing. We saw him added to the list, like you mentioned, less than 24 hours before he was reportedly hired to serve as the team's next DC. There were 3 candidates who got second interviews for the job. Those 3 were Wink Martindale, who we just spoke about, Chris Harris, who served in the interim role the final 3 games of the year, and then Durante Jones, who ultimately I thought was an enticing candidate, but took the Washington Commanders defensive coordinator job. Now, look, Duker is someone who's very young. He's just 36, but he learned under Vic Fangio 2 seasons ago in Miami, one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. He's helped a Miami Dolphins secondary, very, very thin of talent, overperform. He has the connection to Glenn. They see the game in a similar way. So, look, this isn't a big name. This isn't a big fish. This isn't someone that fans were tabbing right away, but this is someone with upside. This is a shot in the dark, and I like the approach that Aaron Glenn took with Duker, saying, hey, this is a young guy who I've been around. I really, really like. I have a defensive background myself. Let me bring him in, take him under my wing. Maybe I call plays the first season, but I help groom him to hopefully be the defensive coordinator of the future for this team, rather than pretty much just going back to the well with what he did with Steve Wilkes last year and saying, oh, let me bring in Wink Martindale because he's a rah-rah guy and has the most experience among anyone on this list. So this shows me that Aaron Glenn has kind of learned his lesson in a way from what just happened with Steve Wilkes and is taking a different approach. Again, not the biggest name, but neither was Chris Banjo when the Jets hired him last offseason. It was 2 years removed from playing. He spent 2 years as an assistant in Denver with the Broncos under one of the best special teams coordinators really in NFL history in Mike Westhoff. And he's already being regarded as one of the best young assistant coaches in the NFL, talking about Banjo here. So, look, this is a hire that I think has a chance to really, really work out with the Jets, and I appreciate it more than them going back to the well with a Wink Martindale or a Jim O'Neill, someone of that nature.
Yeah, and I think this is someone that Glenn is obviously comfortable with since they worked together in the past, and that has to be the hope, right? Like, they're very desperate going into this year. They need to take a very big step forward, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So, Glenn going down, if he is to go down, calling plays himself or turning this thing around on his own play calling, I think is something that you could certainly understand from his perspective. And, you're hiring a young defensive coordinator, that you're hoping, like you said, I think you laid it out pretty nicely there, that you're hoping he grooms into that next guy. And he's had experience. He's younger, but he's with the Ravens, and then he was obviously with Detroit and then Miami. So he's been around the league a little bit too. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm willing to give this one a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the worst thing that could happen? I'd rather go down and lose with Brian Duker than lose with Wink Martindale, than lose with Jim O'Neill, guys who have done this before, and we already know who they are. Again, it's a shot in the dark for Aaron Glenn, taking a chance on the unknown. Now, while nothing is confirmed, I think a lot of people have inferred that Glenn will be calling plays for the defense in 2026. Again, Brian Duker, super young, just 36 years old, no play calling experience. While Glenn obviously hails from a defensive background, Duker was on his staff in Detroit when Glenn was the Lions defensive coordinator from 2021 through 24. Your thoughts on the possibility of Glenn calling plays for this defense in 2026?
Yeah, that would be my expectation after this hire. I'd be surprised if Duker was the one who ends up calling the plays here. I think it will be Aaron Glenn. And, I think this is a situation where, he knows the defense needs to drastically improve. and it's up to him. And he was very, very hands off last year, and maybe he realized that that's not the approach that he wants to take, and he does want to get more involved in the defense. And clearly things need to change from last year going into this year in 2026. So they're trying something different, and obviously have to hope that it works out for him.
Smash the like button, hit subscribe. I'm Connor Long. He's Matt O'Leary. We're right here with you guys on a Wednesday edition of NY Flight Jets Talk. Again, smash the like button, hit subscribe. That is completely free. Helps the channel grow significantly. Like, got 296 you guys watching us live, 97 you guys over on YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube and you're new, be sure to hit subscribe. Bringing you guys daily Jets content all year long. Throw all your questions, your comments, your thoughts in the chat. We're going to get to those. But first, Matt, Nate wants the link to that slick hoodie that you are rocking with the Jets rivalry logo. Are you able to drop the link in the chat to that hoodie for Nate's request if you're able to find it?
For full transparency, Fanatics sent it to me. So I didn't purchase this. So it's from Fanatics. I'm sure it's on their Fanatics website somewhere. You might have to do a little bit of digging, but they sent a little package over, so we appreciate Fanatics when the rivalry uniforms came out. And I do like this one a lot. It's cool. It says Gotham City Football on the back too, so it's comfy. I like it.
Awesome. Nate says, Connor, Matt, I know you saw the tweet comparing Duker to Minter, McDonald, etc. You think he's a yes man for Aaron or a rising star? What say you, Matt O'Leary?
I rising star might be a little bit of a stretch for me, but can I use the word intriguing? I think like that. Yeah. I'm willing to go there and say that there might be something more than he's just a yes man. But I'm not ready to go rising star yet. I think that might be a little bit too out there for me. Yeah, rising star is also a term that I think we hear from someone who maybe has more experience. That's where you really start to hear rising star, like Clint Kubiak with the Seahawks, for example, has been viewed as a rising star now for a few years in the NFL coaching space. So I'm right there with you. I think it's, I think it's a bit of a reach to say that he's a rising star, but at the same time, I don't think he's just a yes man, because would a yes man be brought on to work with Vic Fangio in Miami? Would he really help turn that secondary around? So I think he's more than that. I think it's kind of in the middle. And again, it's going to be intriguing to see how the Jets kind of balance these defensive responsibilities between Brian Duker, their new defensive coordinator, and head coach Aaron Glenn, of course, with who obviously has a defensive background and made his name known in the NFL coaching space because of what he was able to do coaching that side of the ball. I'm a football kid says, can we talk about the incoming Duker memes, please? I'm already seeing all of them, Matt. They're all over Twitter, so just wait until the season gets closer. Yeah, it's only gonna continue, right? Like, and especially if God forbid he doesn't play well, too. On top of that. Oh yeah, dude, it's gonna be an interesting year because so much could happen this season, Matt. Like even by the Jets just going into year 2 with Aaron Glenn. I hate to put it out there, but like if he gets off 0-4, 0-5, I don't know if he's surviving that. This could very well be a Brian Callahan situation with the Tennessee Titans if the Jets get off to a start like that, man. So this is gonna be an interesting year for better or worse. It definitely is, and I think the noise is going to be very, very loud if they don't get off to a good start. Most definitely. Rick Kent says Jim Schwartz just told Cleveland he's not coming back because they hired Monken as head coach. Any chance he consider the Jets? I jettison Duker in a heartbeat. Dude, I don't think Jim Schwartz is coming to the Jets. I think Rick, he's going to get a DC job somewhere. I think him and Leonard might be on a crash course for that Buffalo job. Yeah, he's going to have better options, unfortunately. I love Jim Schwartz. I think he is my favorite, or was my favorite defensive coordinator candidate, right up there with Jim Leonard. But I don't see him coming here, unfortunately. You like that hire for the Browns, Todd Monken? I am a big Todd Monken guy. I liked him back in the day when the Jets were looking at him in 2018 in the Sam Darnold era. I liked that a lot. And I think he's been a really good offensive coordinator. I know things that obviously didn't end well in Baltimore, but, had a lot of success around the league and at the collegiate level. So I think all things considered, when you look at how many guys took themselves out of the running of that Cleveland job, I think they ended up okay with Monken. Yeah, absolutely. And that job isn't really attractive, to be honest, especially given all the openings that were around the league. It's so weird because last year, look, there were like the few openings, but now this year was like the flurry because last year and this year, that was the tweener year between like a
a Mike Tomlin or a John Harbaugh. This is the territory we were going to see them get fired in. We thought there was a chance Tomlin could have gone last offseason or even been traded potentially. This year just happened to be the year where all the teams just said, screw it. We're getting rid of these veterans who had been here forever, which just caused a ton of havoc really around coaching circles. And a Kevin Stefanski even getting canned in Cleveland. And then the obvious ones, Jonathan Gannon with the Cardinals, Raheem Morris with the Falcons. There were just so many openings this offseason, and kind of tie this back to the Jets in a way. Matt, I was talking about this on yesterday's show. I just think the narrative is total nonsense that, if the Jets canned Aaron Glenn after 1 year, they weren't going to get anyone to come be the head coach of this team. I just think that notion is total BS, man.
I'm not all the way there, but I do worry when you look at the situations that the Browns, the Cardinals, and the Raiders found themselves in, where they were having candidates take themselves out of the running for different opportunities. I think the Jets could have potentially been in that same boat. At the same time, though, could they have found someone better than Aaron Glenn? I think you can make the case for it, right? Like, I'm rooting for Aaron Glenn. I want him to turn this thing around, but would you rather Todd Monken or would you rather Aaron Glenn? I think you'd probably rather Todd Monken at this point.
I mean, Clint Kubiak, who is pretty much on a crash course with the Raiders to land that job potentially. You're telling me, Matt, like that he wouldn't maybe be interested in taking a job with the Jets, who he would have his pick of the litter as it pertains to taking a quarterback. And then again, the Jets aren't a Super Bowl roster. They don't have that caliber of a team, but they also have 5 first-round picks over the next 2 years, over $90 million in projected cap space. I don't think it would have been the least appealing job out there. I think Vegas would have been below them. I think Cleveland would have been below them. I think you can make a case for Arizona, Miami, the Falcons as well. Look at the situations they're in. So it wouldn't be like the Ravens job. It wouldn't have been like the Steelers job, but I don't think it would have been the least attractive job where nobody was touching it.
I think probably the Cardinals or the Browns would be the most unattractive job. I think the Jets would be in that kind of.
Not the Dolphins.
I think I don't know about the Dolphins. I think they're a little further along than where the Jets are right now. They have some pieces at least on offense. They have Waddle and Devon Achane, and they need work obviously, but I guess the Dolphins can be in that same tier too. But I put the Raiders ahead of the Jets with having the number 1 pick and getting to work with Fernando Mendoza if one of these offensive guys really likes him and wants that opportunity.
The Real 2 Cruising comes in, says it seems that Woody is tired of hiring, firing, and continue to pay coaches. With Engstrand gone, Reich could play hardball with the Jets. Brian Duker meet Lunda Wells. Lunda Wells, the first candidate to officially take an interview for the Jets offensive coordinator job after they parted ways with Engstrand. Thoughts on the first part of that question, Matt? This is kind of twofold. As Real 2 Cruising talks about Woody being tired of firing and hiring while continuing to pay this, large group of coaches.
Yeah, I get that they did fire a lot of assistants, and the assistants still have to get paid too. So not nearly as much as Aaron Glenn, obviously. That's probably part of it. I also think he doesn't want to admit a mistake too. I think he wants to give Aaron Glenn the time to prove people wrong and say, see, I didn't make a mistake by hiring him. So I think that's part of it. Obviously, as we've said, like huge year coming up for them in 2026. If it goes bad again, I don't think they're getting a 3rd year.
Money is not an issue for Woody Johnson, Matt O'Leary. The man just bought a $250 million soccer team. Like, money is an issue. I think it's more so his own ego and him getting in his own way. Look at what Robert Kraft did with the New England Patriots last year, Matt. He admitted he made a mistake with Gerard Mayo, but had the guts, for lack of a better term, to realize that and can him after 1 year. And they got Mike Vrabel in the building, and now they're in the Super Bowl after they had a worse record than the Jets last season. Just think of how crazy that is. I don't think it's the money that Woody Johnson's worried about. I think it's his reputation and his ego and who he is. And frankly, we talk about his history of meddling. He's given his guys chances. That's the thing that you can't bash Woody for. He's given his guys a fair shake for a few years. But when things get really ugly and get really, really embarrassing, that's when he makes a move. And he's not afraid to act in season, evidenced by the Saleh firing after a 2-3 start. That's what tells me that If Aaron Glenn starts 1-4, if Aaron Glenn starts 0-5, his seat could get really hot, and it could get really hot super, super quick. Now, the second part of this question, talking about Reich potentially playing hardball with the Jets and Lunda Wells. I'll start with Reich, Matt. This is someone who has not really had NFL success since 2021, 2022, spent last year in Stanford as their head coach, led that team to a 4-8 record. Your thoughts on that potential hiring that seems, at least to Connor Hughes of SNY, based on what he's reporting, it seems as if Reich is the number one option for the Jets, and that is the candidate they are, quote, zeroing in on to be their offensive play caller in 2026.
I think that's who it's going to end up being. I would like him in a quarterback coach role. And if like in a perfect world, I think him for a quarterback coach and Tanner Engstrand staying as the offensive coordinator would have been my preferred route. I didn't think Tanner was the issue with the offense. Obviously there's a lot of experience there with Frank Reich, but I don't know if he's the guy who's coming in 2026 with major question marks at the quarterback position and with not an easy solution to fix it, and is going to come in and take this offense to the next level. I don't have a ton of optimism in that.
Yeah, Frank Reich, look, Matt, this is interesting, right? Because he has bounced around the league a ton. He's had 2 stints as a head coach. He's had 2 stints as an 3 stints, as an offensive coordinator. He was on a staff that won a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles in 2017. I think the important distinction there, though, was it was with an offensive-minded head coach in Doug Peterson, and Frank Reich was a non-play calling OC that year. So how much stake could you really put to that? The bottom line for me is when you look at Frank Reich's resume and the recent track record of him in the NFL, it does not warrant a play calling job in 2026. His last stop with the Carolina Panthers as their head coach in 2023 ended absolutely disastrously. They started 1-10. He was canned. He went one and done along with most of his staff, again, fired in season. And under his watch, Bryce Young had a historically bad NFL rookie season after winning the Heisman Trophy the year before. And I think what's even more telling is that Dave Canales came in, who had an offensive background, was with the Bucs, a young, hotshot, up-and-coming mind, and said, no, this quarterback isn't broken. He just wasn't coached properly. And 2 years later, after Reich's gone, Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers are in the playoffs. So I just don't get what there's to point to, in my opinion, in recent memory that says Frank Reich is equipped to have a play calling job in the year 2026 and oversee the development plan of a quarterback.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you on that. It clearly did not go very well for him in Carolina. The last few years with the Indianapolis Colts, it started to go down, and obviously the Colts situation was tough because Andrew Luck retires out of the blue and they had a different veteran quarterback every year. Understandable. And he had it going for a little while there, but just couldn't have that kind of consistency. This would be a hire that I think maybe would have excited Jet fans like 5 years ago or so, but that's not unfortunately, like the NFL goes very quickly. 5 years ago is a long time in the NFL. So I think he has an uphill battle.
My top 2 guys for the job are Doug Peterson, number 1, and Greg Roman at number 2. Peterson is someone who has had recent success in the NFL. I know things didn't end the best way over in Jacksonville, but it was just a few years ago, 2022, when he had that team in the playoffs, and he had Trevor Lawrence putting up career numbers that season, earned a Pro Bowl appearance under Peterson's watch in his second only NFL season. So Peterson really helped develop Lawrence over there in Jacksonville. I think that offense ranked 12th or something in offensive DVOA that year. They went to the playoffs. He's someone with recent NFL success, tangible, proven track record of saying he's been able to develop quarterbacks. He's number 1, and if he's not willing to take the job, I'd call up Greg Roman. I know he's more of a controversial one because he kind of flamed out over the past couple seasons in Los Angeles with the Chargers. But look at what he did with Lamar Jackson under his watch over there in Baltimore. Jackson not only developed, but Roman built a scheme that really emphasized Jackson's strengths and masked those weaknesses. Again, Jackson won an MVP there over in Baltimore. And I think the primary reason that it didn't work out in Los Angeles is because Greg Roman's offense is predicated upon having a very physical and dominant offensive line because he is one of the best run game designers in the NFL. And unfortunately for the Chargers, they had over 20 offensive line combinations this past season. Rashawn Slater, their stud left tackle, was out for the season after an injury he suffered over the summer. Joe Alt didn't even make it till week 8 before he suffered a season-ending injury. So those are the two guys, in my opinion, Matt, that I'd take a shot on.
Yeah, and I think those are both good options for the Jets. And Greg Roman, like you said, is a controversial one, but if the Jets want to have this strong defense and run game identity, I think that he's absolutely, he has a proven track record of establishing a really good run game and a rushing offense. So, and that's someone with a ton of play calling experience. So I'd be open to that one, Connor. I really would.
Matt, I know you got to run, so we'll take a fun one before I let you go. Then I'll stay on, everyone, and take the rest of your questions. So continue to load up all of your questions, your comments, your thoughts in the chat. We'll continue to get to those, but last one with Matt, and it's a fun one from Jay Quest. Says, honest question, who's taller, Matt or Connor? Also, is Connor sitting down taller than Jake? I'm pretty sure Connor sitting down is taller than me. So, Matt, what are you, 6'4", 6'5"?
Yeah, I claim 6'4", but I
Okay.
probably am closer to 6'5".
So you still have me by 4 inches. I went when I did my last yearly checkup, which was in September. I was 5'10" and a half. I stand next to people who are 6 foot, and I'm pretty much head to head, if not a little bit taller. So for the time being, I'll say I'm 6 foot. And I'm hoping I can get to like the 6'2", 6'3" range, and that's what they're saying. I think if I can, even out in the 6'2" to 6'5" category, that would be ideal. So you're pretty tall, but you're not awkwardly tall. I think once you get to like 6'6" or 6'7", that's where it's you're towering over everyone. Yeah, you're a giant. I definitely am taller than Jake. I've met Jake a couple times. I don't know. Jake's probably 5'8", 5'9"-ish.
I would guess
I'm taller
probably
than
around
Jake.
that.
Yeah, how tall are you, Jake? Well, let's throw it in the chat. We'll we'll circle back. Anyways, Matt, thank you so much for the time, man. It was great to do this again with you, and looking forward to a continued fun off season, and looking forward to doing some more of these shows with you, man, before we get back to doing our usual pregame spot every Sunday.
Love it. Thanks so much for having me, Connor. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Matt O'Leary joining us right here on the show. I'm sure you have, but if you haven't, go follow him on all social media platforms at Matt O'Leary NY. Shout out to everyone watching us live right here on a Wednesday edition of NY Flight Jets Talk. As always, I am your host, Connor Long. Follow me on Twitter at Connor_Long15. We got 431 of you guys in the building, 132 of you on YouTube, 299 over on Twitter. So if you're watching on Twitter, come over, like the stream on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, bounce over and like the stream on Twitter as well. Continue to grow us across all platforms. Appreciate the hell out of you guys. Appreciate all your support. Again, hit like, hit subscribe. That is the free way to help support the show and help us grow. Questions, comments, thoughts, throw all of those in the chat. We are going to get to those. Appreciate the hell out of you guys again. We appreciate your support, as always, as we come to you guys live right here on this Wednesday evening. Shout out to Harvey, latest member right here on the channel. Thank you so much, Harvey, for becoming channel member over here on YouTube. And again, the paid way to support the show, folks. You guys have been so generous throughout this evening. You can become a member, and if you submit a super chat, that question, that comment will cut the line of all the other chats we have in waiting, and we will go directly to that. So thank you so much, Harvey. Appreciate the support, and shout out to everyone watching us right here on the show. Thank you all. William in the building says Lombardi of the Broncos is available as OC unless Reich is a lock. Yes, so Joe Lombardi was canned yesterday, actually, I believe it was, by the Denver Broncos. He's interesting because he has a lot of experience as an offensive coordinator, multiple stints, overlapped with Glenn in New Orleans there. He would be an interesting option. Again, I think the key distinction, though, is he was a non-play calling offensive coordinator over the past couple seasons in Denver with the Broncos. And Sean Payton is obviously known for his offensive acumen. He's an offensive mastermind over there. So how much of the recent success is attributed to Lombardi compared to Payton? I would much rather prefer the names that I really like for offensive coordinator. I think unfortunately some are so far fetched. And I think that's in large part due to the fact that the Jets took so long to ultimately can Engstrand. The name atop my list is Cliff Kingsbury. He is the main guy that I'm looking at. And then Greg Roman and Doug Peterson. Those three are the top three. Kingsbury 1, Peterson 2. I put Peterson 1 earlier in kind of like my realistic category. Because again, I don't think, unfortunately, Cliff Kingsbury is going to want to take a job with the Jets. But the Jets actually, perfect timing, rarely, the Jets perfectly schedule a tweet and a list of interviews for us to indulge into right here on the show. And of course, regarding the offensive coordinator position, directly from the Jets, we'll pull this up right here on the show. They have announced their list of offensive coordinator interviews. We'll try to get it pulled up. StreamYard doing its usual thing, being annoying. Here is the list of candidates per the Jets that they have interviewed for their offensive coordinator vacancy. Darrell Bevell, Ronald Curry, Frank Reich, Greg Roman, and Lunda Wells. Wells was the only known candidate as of today to interview for the job. That was reported by Adam Schefter earlier this morning. So he was known. He is the Cowboys tight end coach. Currently, he spent some time with the Giants as well. So Wells was the known candidate to interview for the job. Again, he has spent the past couple seasons in Dallas as the Cowboys tight end coach since 2020. Just 42 years old, was with the Giants for 8 seasons before that. So Wells was known. The second one is an option that we just spoke about, Greg Roman, someone that I really, really like for the role. The third name on that list is Frank Reich, who the Jets had been linked to, according to SNY's Connor Hughes, and the candidate the Jets are, quote, zeroing in on, per Hughes. Ronald Curry with the Buffalo Bills. Ronald Curry is an interesting one. He has spent the past couple seasons in Buffalo, a bit on the older side compared to a candidate like Wells. He is 46 years old, He has been the Bills quarterbacks coach over the past 2 seasons. And before that, he was the New Orleans Saints quarterbacks coach and passing game coordinator from 2022 through 2023. Now, Darrell Bevell is one of the more known names on this list. I'd say Bevell, Roman, and Reich are the 3 known names among these candidates. Since 2022, he's been in Miami as the Dolphins quarterbacks coach and pass game coordinator. Obviously, he is available this offseason because of the coaching change that just went on down south. Before that, he was the Jaguars offensive coordinator and interim head coach in 2021. He was with the Lions in 2019 and 2020 as their OC. The Seahawks before that from 2011 through 2017 under Pete Carroll. He ultimately won a Super Bowl there as an offensive coordinator. So Bevell is definitely super experienced. 6 stints as an offensive coordinator at the NFL level, which is quite telling, to be honest. 5, It is. And then obviously these past handful of seasons in Miami as their quarterbacks coach and pass game coordinator. Greg Roman is my guy on this list. There's no doubt about it. We had spoken about him before this list came up. Again, someone who has done it before, who's helped develop a quarterback, oversaw that plan in Baltimore that really led Lamar Jackson to win his first MVP award, and his innovative run game designs to go with it, man. I'm all in on Greg Roman. I think if I had to rank these candidates, I'd put Roman at 1. I'd probably put Bevell at 2, Curry at 3, Reich at 4, Wells at 5. Wells' level of inexperience just concerns me, and I'm not one to say, oh, you need to have the most experience in the world. I would view Wells as maybe someone to add on to this coaching staff, rather the OC who I'd want calling plays for this team. So that is kind of the distinction that I'm going to make here. Look, if there's a way that the Jets could get Greg Roman as the OC and then add like Ronald Curry or Darrell Bevell as the quarterbacks coach, I think that would be a great situation for the team to be in. So I think if you come away with one of Roman or Bevell as the OC, I'm not going to complain. Again, Roman is my number 1 option among all the names on this list, but I'm not going to complain if they landed Bevell. Again, my rankings among these candidates tentatively are as follows: Roman at 1, Bevell at 2, Curry at 3, Reich at 4, Wells at 5. Talking about the 5 New York Jets offensive coordinator candidates that the team interviewed earlier today, according to their official website. Sound off your thoughts in the chat right here on NY Flight Jets Talk. Happy to see that they actually broke the news finally live while we were on the show, so we could get into it without us having to wait till tomorrow to chop it up regarding the latest in Jetland. Still see you guys are active in the chat. Shout out to everyone supporting. Again, hit like, hit subscribe if you're new. Continue to support the show. We're live talking about this team every single evening. We got a show coming tomorrow as well, so stay tuned for that, folks. Again, appreciate the hell out of you guys. Appreciate your support. As always, I'm Connor Long, right here with you guys on NY Flight Jets Talk. Will, with an interesting comment, says, if AG will call plays, I'm curious to see if Sherwood, Williams, and JJ all improve their play. Well, I don't think Quincy Williams is going to return to the team for next season. William, he's a free agency. I think he's a free agent. Excuse me. I think he's going to pursue opportunities elsewhere. I think he's just looking for a new set of scenery. I think he's going to get more money elsewhere. So even if he doesn't return, Sherwood and JJ are two really interesting guys. You could even throw Will McDonald into that group. Among those names, I think Sherwood took the largest step back just because this is someone who was the team MVP in 2024. He got 3 years, $45 million on an extension free agency for a reason. He was a damn good player, and he just regressed drastically this past season. McDonald was a double-digit sack guy, and then this year he had 8 sacks, and 4 of which came in a span of 2 games. So look, it's going to be interesting, and it's a great point that you mentioned here, how these guys would improve or shift play-wise under Glenn's play calling, because it's hard to decipher what is Wilks, what is Glenn. Based on what we know, it was Wilks' scheme that was being operated last year, and obviously Wilks was the one calling the plays. And the point is, Aaron Glenn and Steve Wilks view the game completely differently. Aaron Glenn is a much more press man heavy kind of play caller, very, very aggressive. Wilks is more of a let me drop back in zone, play everything in front of us type coach. So assuming Glenn takes over those play calling duties this year, it will be quite intriguing to see how those guys improve or even potentially regress in a way. And Sherwood, Johnson, and McDonald in particular. So great call out there by you, William. Appreciate you supporting the show. Seth Castro comes in, says, you think Titans will be interested in trading for JJ, Will McDonald, or Sherwood? Look, that they're kind of getting the band over there together. Obviously, Aaron White-Cotton was hired as the defensive line coach under an old friend in Robert Saleh. I think when you look at the Titans team right now, they're up front. It's solid, especially on the interior of the defensive line. I mean, Jeffrey Simmons was an all-pro this past year for them, but I think they could definitely add. And when you look on the outside and what they're dealing with, obviously you have Simmons on one end. Sebastian Joseph Day is currently listed as their other starter. So they could use an upgrade there. And look, why not? Those guys thrived under Robert Saleh. They thrived in that Jeff Ulbrich, Robert Saleh scheme. Obviously all worked with White-Cotton. I think, if any, they'd be interested in Will McDonald the most because that regime was so high on McDonald. I mean, they took him over Jackson Smith and the Jibba. That should tell fans all they need to know. JSN, who is on pace to, he's had one of the best offensive seasons in recent memory, over 1,500 receiving yards, and obviously significantly helped that team and brought them to the Super Bowl that they'll be playing in next Sunday out in Santa Clara. So I think among those 3 guys, the Titans would be interesting, as I digress, in Will McDonald the most out of those 3 names in particular, but could certainly be in play there for sure. Jack Dooley comes in, says, one thing I'm nervous about with Duker versus Wink is bringing in his position coaches. Wink would have brought in his own linebacker and DL defensive line coaches, etc. Will Big Dookie, in quotations, be able to bring in good coaches? It's an interesting question and a fair point by you, Jack. I think one of the bonuses that I've pointed out in a few articles is that the DC, at the point, I didn't know when I wrote that article who would be taking the job. So the DC I thought was going to have full autonomy to help build that staff. And I still think that holds as it pertains to the poll that he's going to get to build the staff and bring in better positional coaches. sure, maybe he'll miss out on, a positional coach or two because Wink Martindale, let's be honest, is way more experienced in the NFL and more respected. He's built up that trust throughout his time. I mean, Wink is someone who's had multiple stints as an NFL defensive coordinator, one of the most respected coaches in the game. Again, a really good coach. I just don't think he fits what the Jets want to do. And I think they tried that same route with Steve Wilkes last offseason, and obviously it flamed out. So I think the Jets pivoting away from that, Glenn in particular, shows that this regime is really learning a lesson, which is important. So I do think that Wink would have helped build a better staff, but I think at this juncture, Brian Duker makes a lot more sense for the team than Wink Martindale does. So sure, it's a fair point. They'll miss out maybe on a few positional coaches, but overall, I think the hire makes more sense overall for the Jets. I'll wrap with one here from Nate again. Shout out to everyone. Sorry I couldn't get to every comment. It's been 40 minutes. Got to get a lot done tonight. So appreciate you all. It's been great hopping on with you guys, and I'm going to see you guys again tomorrow. Bringing you guys daily Jets content. So again, if you're new, hit like, hit subscribe. It is great to be with you. And if you're a returning viewer, of course, it's always great to see you in the building. Appreciate supporting the show. Thank you all. Really, really means a lot as we continue to grow this platform. Nate says, what QB coach or other offensive staff could Reich bring in if hired? Okay, this is interesting, Nate, because I wrote an article a few weeks back on some of the coaches I would have liked the Jets to add to their staff. And one of them on the offensive side of the ball is someone that Reich actually had a connection to. His name is Mike Barakovi. He's not as experienced as some other potential quarterback coach names that have been floated out there. He's not nearly as experienced as a Frank Reich, as a Doug Peterson, as a Ronald Curry, who was on the offensive coordinator interview list. But this is someone who not viewed as a rising star, but has kind of risen up the ranks over the past couple seasons. Reich brought him on to that initial staff as an offensive assistant, was his second ever NFL coaching gig. And he was one of the only few coaches retained by Dave Canales after the vast majority of that staff went one and done, including Josh McCown, who's gotten pretty deep head coaching interest over these past couple of years. But Barakovi was retained by Canales, and over the past couple of years, he's earned promotions. This past year, he was the pass game specialist with the Panthers and assistant quarterbacks coach. And then obviously, Bryce Young had a great year under his watch. So again, he's on the younger side. He played in college at Arizona State. He went undrafted in 2016. He was a graduate assistant for a year at Arizona State, and then he spent 3 seasons with the Cardinals. Reich brought him on for 2023. Canales retained him. This past year, he was promoted to serve as the Panthers pass game specialist and assistant quarterbacks coach. Obviously, Carolina ended up winning the NFC South this past year, put up a fight in the playoffs against the Rams. But most importantly, Bryce Young had a career year, set a career high in completion percentage, passing yards, touchdowns, and passer rating. Just 32, but as an up-and-coming head coach, I'd really like to see the Jets take a chance on, especially under a more experienced offensive coach. And Reich, I'm not asking them to bring in Barakovi as the play caller, for crying out loud, but someone who could really be a home run hire. That's the resume that I roll the dice on if you're looking for an up and coming guy, in a sense, to bring on the coaching staff. So thank you all for joining us right here on a Wednesday edition of NY Flight Jets Talk. It was great going back and forth with you guys. Appreciate your support. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you're just tuning in, kind of fast forward, joined by Matt O'Leary for the first 25 plus minutes of the show. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for spending your Wednesday evening right here on the show. Stay tuned. Hit like, hit subscribe. Come back tomorrow if you enjoyed the show. Thank you all. That'll do it for me right here on NY Flight Jets Talk. I'm Jets X Factor's Connor Long saying have a great rest of your Wednesday evening, everyone. And as always, JTS, baby. Jets, Jets, Jets. Peace out, folks.